Oregon Cider Week, and today our friends at the Oregon Department of Agriculture introduce us to the flavors of cider and the people who make it.
Cider is, at its core, it's a fermented alcoholic beverage made of apple juice. You start with great ingredients, many of which are grown here in the Northwest. The Northwest Cider Association is a trade organization that supports over 78 cider makers that are in our region, which is Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and British Columbia. And our goal is to connect consumers with the amazing ciders that are here in the Northwest.
The variations on ciders and the number that we make is pretty innumerable. There are a lot of different ciders that we make. Cider is fermented juice, apple or pear. Making cider is a pretty complex process. It starts out in the fields with the apples themselves. We prefer apples from the Pacific Northwest. I mean, we are here in Portland, we are in Oregon where apples are coming from, and we get really great apples from both Oregon and Washington. We get those apples, we'll grind them, and we'll press them to get apple juice. And once we have the juice, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and add yeast to the juice to start the fermentation process. All right, so this is our yeast that we're gonna use as a starter to get the fermentation going. I'm gonna put it into a tank and to start the fermentation process, and in about 4 or 5 days, we're actually gonna transfer that tank into a much larger tank to kickstart that fermentation in that tank. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm adding the yeast to the apple juice to start the fermentation process. This will be ready as finished cider in about 10 days. The yeast is now introduced into the apple juice. It has a lot of sugar, which is the food for the yeast, which will convert the sugar to alcohol and carbon dioxide. All the CO2 that's building up, because this is currently fermenting, and so what's happening is all the CO2 is rising in the tank, and then this actually allows it to escape. We do all of the actual production and the canning and bottling here in this facility. We have a mobile canner that comes in and cans everything for us, and then all the bottling is done by hand by our employees. What's happening here is our pasteurization process. So what we're doing is we set these cans in here that were just canned, and they were canned at about 38 degrees, and what we're doing is we're putting it into 185-degree water. What the pasteurizing will do is it'll kill any of the remaining wild yeast that was found in anything we used to back sweeten. It makes it shelf stable. So these will be good for 18 months to 2 years.
Oregon Cider Week is very exciting. We have events going on all over Portland, all over Oregon to celebrate the amazing variety of cider that people drink here. We drink the most cider per capita here in Portland. And so there will be tap takeovers, there'll be bike ride events, tasting rooms, history and science talks.
Oregon Cider Week is huge for us. It brings in a lot of people into town and kind of gets the Oregon cider out, the name known more. It gets it out there. There's a lot of publicity behind it, and it draws a lot of people into Portland and around Oregon to consume more Oregon ciders. This week, Japan is also hosting their own Oregon Cider Week, where a lot of Oregon cideries are being represented and poured for the Japanese public to kind of grow Oregon cider in Japan. It's a very exciting time because it's growing so tremendously right now, and there's endless things that you can do with cider and with apples, and so it's a lot of fun to come up with new creations and different ways to make it and have the public try it and tell you what you think.
Cider is so important here in Oregon because our raw ingredients are coming locally, and it tastes so good because of that. We're lucky to live in Oregon, where our hops are grown, where our apples are grown, and the creative minds are here. We have a plethora of cider makers. We have a quarter of the cider makers here in the Northwest for the whole country. So it's a good time to be out there sampling and seeing what style you like.
For more information about Oregon Cider Week and its events, just head to our website at ke2.com and go to the Celebrate Oregon Agriculture section.